Okay. Hare Krishna, everybody. So
Hare
last
Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Okay, so last time we did till verse number 55, and we understood. I think we started from verse number 47, and we saw how Krishna talked about a very important siddhanta in verse number 47, that is karmani eva adhikaraste. So he told us about the siddhanta of nishkam karma yoga. So karmani eva adhikaraste. So we only have the right to perform our karma, and but we are not entitled to the fruit. No, that's what karma that I say ma phaleshu kadachan, but we don't have to be attached to the fruit. Ma karam phal hetur bhur, because we are not the cause of that result. There are several factors, but mate sango astu akarmani, but we don't even have to be attached to not performing our duty. So Krishna, he tried to, trap us from all the sides that we have to do nishkam karam yoga. We don't have to be attached to a karma, in action. Prabhupada also defined about karma, vikarma, karma, and everything in this verse purport. And but we don't have to be attached to the fruits also. We don't have to think that I am the doer, right? And then we in verse number 48, again, Krishna explained about the definition of Nishkam Karam Yoga, that we have to perform our duty, but be detached from the result. And verse number 49, Krishna told about avaram karma, the works like fruitive activities, abominable actions which cause bondage. So Krishna is asking Arjuna to keep away from all that. So therefore, he is telling him to act in Buddhi Yoga, that is Nishkam Karam Yoga. And one who acts for fruits, that person is called a miser, because he wants to keep everything for himself. Who are misers? They don't know how to utilize their assets for the best purpose. So we don't have to become like them. Verse number 50, then Krishna told about the yoga karam kushalam, the art of the work. So again, no attachment to the result. We have to give it to the Lord, and then we won't be affected by good or bad reactions. So same activity can be performed on the material platform or spiritual platform. So it's just about our consciousness. I want to do that activity for my satisfaction or for the satisfaction of the Supreme. So that is again Nishkam Karma Yoga. So he's talking about all that. Verse number 51, Krishna just told that, many devotees have been doing this. This is not anything new I'm introducing to you. Verse number 52, Krishna told about Moha Kalilam. So this Karam Kanda forest, this is like a dense forest. If one gets lost in this, then he forgets about what is right, what is his goal, and he doesn't practice devotional service. So Krishna is telling Arjuna to not get lost in this complicated stuff in Vedas, that is like a dense forest of illusion, of delusion. So don't engage yourself in this karam kanda and all, and rise above all this. Verse number 53, Krishna tells what will be the result if one comes out of this dense forest of delusion of Vedas. Then what will happen? One can be situated in samadhi on the Supreme, because his buddhi will be achala, it won't be flickering, it will be fixed. So again, Krishna has encouraged Arjuna in the entire section to give up the karam kanda platform and rise to the Karma Yoga platform, where one performs the duties only as a matter of duty without being attached to the result. And then starting from verse number 54, we saw that how Arjuna is asking a few questions, because in the previous verse number 53, Krishna talked about, samadhi. So he's asking that who is that person who is, who is engaged in this samadhi, Sthita Dhir Muni, who is situated in samadhi. What are his symptoms? He asks 4 questions. What are his symptoms? What is his language, or how does he speak? Then third question is how does he sit? And fourth question, how does he walk? And again, we understood that these questions are not just, they are not direct questions. They have some deeper meaning. And we discussed verse number 55, where Krishna answers about the main symptom of the Sthita Dhirmuni. And he told in verse number 55 that this person is Prajahati. Prajahati. Prajahati means he gives up. What does he give up? Kaman, all the desires for sense gratification. And he is Atmani. tushta is satisfied. He's satisfied in the pure state of the soul. So unless and until we don't give up the material desires, the desires for sense gratification, we cannot be situated in samadhi. Our mind cannot be fixed. We can never be satisfied. So if one has no demand for sense enjoyment, then he's satisfied with what Krishna has given, and he is tushta. So this is the prime symptom of one who is in knowledge. He is not hankering for sense gratification, and he is satisfied, or hankering for sense gratification and then just endeavoring to satisfy his unlimited desires. But he is satisfied on the platform of the soul and whatever Krishna has given him. So we did till here. Today we will start from verse number 56. So in verse number 56 and 57 now, Krishna will tell that how this Dhir Muni, he responds to various dualities. I mean, this is the answer to the question how he speaks. What is his language? So that, the deeper meaning for that is that how such a person responds to various dualities of this material world, like, sukha, dukha, shubha, ashubha, success, failure, etc. So how does he respond to all that? Verse number 56. दुखेषु अनुद्विग्नमनः सुखेषु विगतस्पृह वीतराग भय क्रोध स्थित धीर मुनि उच्यते. Somebody please read the translation and purport.
Hare Krishna Mataji, should I read?
Yes, please go ahead.
One who is purport, translation, one who is not disturbed in mind even amidst of threefold miseries, amidst the threefold miseries, or elated when there is happiness, and one who is free from attachment, fear, and anger is called the sage of steady mind. Purport: the word Muni, one who can agitate his mind in various ways, for mental speculation without coming to a factual conclusion. It is said that every Muni has a different angle of vision, and unless a Muni differs from other Munis, he cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term. Nasav Sir Yasa Matam Na Bhyunnam Mahabharat Vanaparva 31:13 117. But a Sthitadhir Muni is mentioned herein by the Lord is different from an ordinary Muni. The Sthitadhir Muni is always always in Krishna consciousness, for he has exhausted all his business of creative speculation. He is called Prashanta Nishesha Mano Rahantara. Stotra Ratna 43, or one who has surpassed the stage of mental speculations and has come to the conclusion of that Lord Sri Krishna or Vasudeva is everything. Vasudeva Sarvam iti sa Mahatma. Mahatma Sudurlabha. He is called the Muni fixed in mind. Such a fully Krishna conscious person is not at all disturbed by the onslaughts of the threefold miseries for he accepts all miseries as the mercy of the Lord, thinking himself only worthy of more trouble due to his past misdeeds. As he sees that his miseries by the grace of the Lord are minimized to the lowest. Similarly, when he is happy, he gives credit to the Lord, thinking himself unworthy of the happiness. He realizes that it is due to only to the Lord's grace, and he is in such a comfortable condition and able to render better service to the Lord. And for the service of the Lord, he is always daring and active and is not influenced by attachment or aversion. Attachment means accepting things for one's own sense gratification, and detachment is the absence of such sensual attachment. But one fixed in Krishna consciousness is neither attached, has neither attachment nor detachment, because his life is dedicated in the service of the Lord. Consequently, he is not at all angry even when his attempts are unsuccessful. Success is not or no success. A Krishna conscious person is always steady in his determination. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you. So here we see, first of all, Prabhupada in the purport is defining who is Muni and who is Sthit Dhir Muni. So what do we understand? That ordinary Muni is always agitating his mind, and he's thinking this is right, this is not right, and everything for a Muni is on the mental platform. Therefore, one Muni never agrees with another Muni. That's what Prabhupada has written here, right? He cannot be called a Muni in the strict sense of the term if he doesn't differ from other Munis. So one Muni always differs from other Munis. Why? Because every mind is different and they are thinking on the mental platform. Therefore, all the Munis are different from each other. But now, who is Sthit Dhir Muni? Sthit Dhir Muni is fixed. His mind is totally fixed. It's not agitated. Why? Because he is not on the mental platform, but his knowledge is based upon shastras, scriptures. And therefore he does everything that Krishna wants. He's not speculating based upon his mind. His understanding is based upon shastras. And what do shastras say? That everything we have to do for Krishna, for his pleasure. Therefore, he is sthit dhir. He is totally situated in samadhi. He is not agitated. Okay, I hope that's clear. Siddhir Muni's mind is not agitated like the other Munis, ordinary Munis. Okay, now the answer to the question that how such a Muni, Siddhir Muni, he responds to the dualities. Dukheshu anu dvignamana, sukheshu vigat spraha. So he is equipoised in all the situations. What happens when good things happen? He thinks it's Krishna's grace. He gives credit to Krishna and he doesn't become overly jubilant, starts jumping and celebrating. And in distressful situation also, he thinks it's Krishna's mercy. It's my own past misdeed and I'm getting the reaction for my misdeeds for my purification. I'm just losing a big chunk of some great sin I had done. So my Lord is helping me purify. And it's a time for rectification. I have to clear my karma account and I have to correct myself, rectify myself. And he thanks the Lord with his body, mind, and words that he deserved more, but the Lord has reduced it to only this much. So there will not be any extreme reactions for such a person, because they see the hand of the Lord in everything happening and he is equipoised. But on the other hand, what do we see? Normally, what happens when one gets what he likes, what he desires or he wanted, he is jumping, celebrating, very happy, as if he has achieved the entire universe. And if it doesn't get what he expected, then he's totally morose, depressed, and he feels everything has come to an end. So many places we are hearing about suicide cases and all that. Totally dejected that nothing else is left in life now. So if things don't go our way, because they don't see Krishna's hand in everything. So for a Sthit Dhir Muni, no attachments or detachments. He's on Nishkam Karam Yoga platform only. I have to do my duty, my best, but results are not in my hand. So success or no success, how does it matter? I have no control over that. It's by the sanction of the Lord. Therefore, I have to be steady in my determination in performing my duty, my best for the pleasure of the Lord. So he accepts it as Krishna's plan and understands that whatever situation I am in, it's for my best and I have to continue with my duties. Okay, so these are the symptoms of Sthit Muni. He is equipoised in all the situations, thinking like this. He has a proper understanding. Okay, moving on to verse number 57. This is again talking about the same thing as I told you. Verse number 56, 57, they both are telling about how he speaks. What is his speech? Yah sarvataran prapya shubha ashubham. Please read translation purpose, somebody.
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes,
Translation. In the material world, one who is unaffected by whatever good or evil he has obtained, neither praising it nor despising it, is firmly fixed in perfect knowledge. Purport. There is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. One who is not agitated by such material upheavals, who is unaffected by good and evil, is to be understood to be fixed in Krishna consciousness. As long as one is in the material world, there is always the possibility of good and evil because this world is full of duality. But one who is fixed in Krishna consciousness is not affected by good and evil because he is simply concerned with Krishna, who is all good absolute. Such consciousness in Krishna situates one in a perfect transcendental position called technically Samadhi. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. So again, what do we understand? Such a person, na bhindati. Second line, the first word, if you say na bhindanti, the word word meaning praises. Na dveshti. Dveshti means he envies. So when everything is good, he doesn't praise it. Wow, it's my good luck and everything is so good, and it doesn't become attached to the life here. And na dveshti. And if the situation is not good, he doesn't hate it, because he understands this is the nature of material world and everything is happening by Krishna's plan. The first line of the purport, there is always some upheaval in the material world, which may be good or evil. So he is not agitated by such material upheavals. So this is how Sthita Dhir Muni, he speaks or he responds to the dualities of the material world. Now in verse number 58, Krishna is telling Arjuna about his second question. How does such a person sits? Kim asit. Asit means sits. Verse number 58. Yada samharate chayam kurmo angani va sarvashah indriyani nindriyatrebhyas tasya pragya pratishtata. Who would want to read?
Hare Krishna Mataji, should I read?
Let's see, Mataji, if somebody
Okay,
else.
okay.
Shobha
Can I read
Mataji.
Mataji? Hare Krishna
Yeah,
Mataji.
yeah. Yes, Mataji, please read.
Okay. Translation. One who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise withdraws its limbs within the shell is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. Purport. The test of the yogi, devotee, or self-realized soul is that he is able to control the senses according to his plan. Most people, however, are servants of senses and are thus directed by the dictation of the senses. This is the answer to the question as how the yogi is situated. The senses are compared to venomous serpents. They want to act very loosely and without restriction. The yogi or the devotee must be very strong to control the serpents like a snake charmer. He never allows them to act independently. There are many injunctions in the revealed scriptures. Some of them are do nots and some of them are do's. Unless one is able to follow the do's and the don'ts, restricting oneself from sense enjoyment, it is not possible to be firmly fixed in Krishna consciousness. The best example set herein is the tortoise. The tortoise can at any moment wind up its senses and exhibit them again at any time for particular purposes. Similarly, the senses of the Krishna conscious person are used only for some particular purpose in the service of the Lord and are withdrawn otherwise. Arjuna is being taught here to use his senses for the service of the Lord instead of for his own satisfaction. Keeping the senses always in the service of the Lord is the example set by the analogy of the tortoise who keeps the senses within. Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank you, Mataji. So Kim Asit. So now he starts answering the second question, and this will go till verse number 63. How such a person sits, or how he controls his senses. So Krishna, as we see in the verse itself, he is giving the analogy of a tortoise, kurmo. So just how a tortoise, he withdraws his senses whenever there is some danger around him. Similarly, a yogi, a person who is in samadhi, he withdraws his senses amidst the sense objects. When he's in the middle of sense objects who can, drive him away from his spiritual path, he withdraws his senses, just like a tortoise. Whatever the yogi wants, he does that. He has control over his senses as per his plan, and he is not dictated by the senses. And Srila Prabhupada is giving another analogy of the serpents in the purport. So how a snake charmer, he can control the snakes, and a yogi also, he can control the senses. So senses are compared to the snakes. They are venomous snakes. They can do that much harm to us. So a yogi, he has full control like a snake charmer on his senses, and it doesn't allow them to act independently. How he controls them, that is by the shastric injunctions. What he's supposed to do, he will do that with the senses. What he's not supposed to do, he will not do that. So he follows the do's and the don'ts as per the shastras. This is how a yogi controls his senses. Okay, so the two analogies we have understood in this words, tortoise and the snake charmer. Now Krishna, he talks about the three aspects of sense control. How can we control our senses? So the first point is that we have to withdraw our senses like a tortoise. What does that mean? We have to restrict our senses from coming in contact with the sense objects. Instead of going ahead to enjoy, it's okay, little bit, one time, two time. So no, we have to restrain it from even coming in contact with the sense objects. Wherever, like the situation we think that it's not favorable for our devotional service, like the malls and all these public places where there is a too much of materialistic life, we should avoid going there. We should not engage our sense, give a opportunity to our senses to come in contact with all those things. So we should restrict our senses from coming in contact with the sense object. So this is the first point. Now what happens, but for how long can we restrict them, right? Forcible restraint, that can't be for too long. We can't just confine ourselves in one corner and not engage our senses in anything, just keep them restricted and restrained. That can't happen for too long. So therefore, what do we have to do? We have to develop a higher taste. We have to engage our senses in something higher. So that's what Krishna is explaining in the next verse, verse number 59. That is the second point now. Verse number 59. Prabhuji, can you scroll up? Yeah, thank you. Vishavini vartante nirharasya dehina rasvarjam raso api asya param drishtva nivartate. Someone please read. Koindala Mataji, Partibhan Mataji, Sarojini Mataji. If anybody is able to read, please go ahead. Okay, Barnali Mataji, maybe you can go again.
Yes, Mother. Though the embodied soul, translation, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste of sense objects remains. But ceasing such engagements by experiencing a higher taste he is fixed in consciousness. Purport: unless one is transcendently situated, it is not possible to cease from sense enjoyment. The process of restriction from sense enjoyment by rules and regulations is something like restricting a diseased person from certain types of eatables. The patient, however, neither likes such restrictions nor loses his taste for eatables. Similarly, sense restriction by some spiritual process like Ashtanga Yoga in the matter of yama, niyama, asana, pranayama, pratyahara, dhyana, dharana, dhyana dharana, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of Supreme Lord Krishna in course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life, but such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. Hare Krishna Mata.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mata.
Thank you, Mataji. So, as I said, Krishna is now telling about the second aspect of sense control in this verse. So, how we have to give a higher taste to our senses. Otherwise, we can't restrain them from sense objects for too long. So Krishna is explaining Vishyavini Vartante Nirharasya Dehina. Dehina is one who is embodied inside this the body. So that is the soul. So what he's telling is that if ahar, ahar is the food. If ahar is not given to the senses, or vishya, the sense objects are not given to the senses, that doesn't mean the taste for those things goes away, right? So Srila Prabhupada, how he's beautifully explaining in the purport that if a diseased person is not allowed to eat certain things, does it taste goes away? No. He's waiting. When will he recover? When will he be able to eat all those things again? So the taste for those things, that remains. So don'ts are necessary initially, but for how long will it continue? Therefore, it's important to have a higher taste, along with the don'ts. Initially, we have to follow some rules and regulations. We don't have to do this, don't have to do that, but we have to engage our senses in something higher. Because of the higher taste, then the taste for lower things, that will naturally go away. For example, if we are given a big feast with the gulab jamun, samosa, kachori, whatever favorite thing, pasta, pizza, whoever likes what, then why will we crave for, the old rotis of yesterday, or the stale food of yesterday, right? Naturally, we won't feel like eating that. That craving will just go away on its own. So with higher taste developed, then the giving up of lower things, that becomes easier. So what is Jnani's renunciation? That is not sustainable, because they don't have any higher taste. They only have forcible restriction. We will do these examples about Vishwamitra and Menka and all that example. Prabhupada discusses about this verse. So if we have forcible restriction, we are controlling our senses with some force, then they can be disturbed very easily. How Menka could disturb Vishwamitra. So we have to engage them in something higher. Param Drishtva, experiencing the higher taste. So unless we experience that taste, the taste of the gulab jamun, then there is no use of controlling our. We have to then. If you tell me that gulab jamun is very nice and you will like it very much, but unless and until I taste it, how will I experience it? How will I give up the craving for the old food? So I have to taste the gulab jamun first, right? So similarly, we have to taste the beauty of the Supreme Lord. That's what Prabhupada is saying. Prabhupada in the purport, if you see, but one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness, no longer has a taste for dead material things. So if I have to taste gulab jamun first to give up the taste for the old food. So we have to taste the beauty of Supreme Lord Krishna. So what do you mean by tasting the beauty of the Supreme Lord? Anybody, you want to share your understanding about it? What do we understand from tasting the beauty of the Supreme Lord?
Hare Krishna Mataji, I think like it is that we understand our position, that he is our eternal parent and the caretaker, and we need not worry about anything and just surrender to the lotus feet of Supreme Lord, and then all anxieties, all worries, everything is miseries and everything is gone.
Yeah, that's nice.
Mataji, how beautiful he is and how sweet his pastimes are. After knowing that, is it?
Yes, nice, Mataji. Yeah, that's a good understanding. So if we see word to word meaning, what is mentioned here, Drishtva means by experiencing. So tasting the beauty of the Supreme Lord means by experiencing. Drishtva is experience. So we can experience the beauty of the Supreme Lord in different ways. As you said, we can see his beautiful form with our eyes. We can hear Krishna Katha from our ears. And with our tongue, we can honor Prashadam. We can chant his holy name. We can speak about his glories. With hands, legs, we can go to the temple and serve him. So with all our senses, we can experience the beauty of Krishna, even our mind and intelligence. So all the senses can be engaged in tasting the beauty of the Supreme Lord, that is, experiencing the beauty of the Supreme Lord. So when we do that, then we are, craving for the lower things, the taste for the lower things, that will go. So unless we engage all the senses in Krishna's service, we can't experience the higher taste. Okay. So taste for dead, pale material things, that can be given up by experiencing something higher, and that is Krishna consciousness. And the last line here, Prabhupada is mentioning, when one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. So that means we should be conscious. No, when one is actually Krishna conscious. So we have to be fully conscious of what we are doing, why we are doing. No, while doing every activity, we have to be conscious that we are doing it for Krishna. Then we can experience the higher taste. To the degree we invest our consciousness in Krishna, to that degree we can experience the taste of Krishna, the higher taste of Krishna consciousness. Okay, so this word here, actually Krishna conscious, Prabhupada has put it very specifically there. So whatever we do, preparing bhoga for the Lord, or cleaning up the house, working, doing whatever chores, we have to be totally conscious that I'm doing it for Krishna. So that is very important understanding from this verse. And the third aspect now, okay, we have the first aspect was we have to withdraw our senses like a tortoise. We don't have to engage our senses or allow them to come in contact with the sense objects. We have to restrict them like a tortoise. The
Hare
second
Krishna,
aspect
Mataji.
was, yes, Mataji.
Shall I ask some question?
Yes, Mataji.
Mataji, in this verse, you are telling everything, whatever you are doing, you need to feel that you are serving to Krishna. So while serving a soul, like how can we think that we are serving Krishna?
While how can we think we are serving Krishna while doing any activity, right?
Yes, Mataji.
Yeah. Mataji, like as I told you, whenever we are cleaning up the house, just to take a simple example, it's Krishna's house. I have to, like how we clean up the temple. Why do we clean up the temple with the proper consciousness? Because we understand that this is Krishna's home. Krishna is residing here. So that feeling, that thought we can have at our home also. We have Krishna in our altar. This is Krishna's home. He is the master. He is the center
Person,
of life. He is the head of everything. So when he is the, yes,
if we are serving a person,
then also Matas, he is a child of Krishna. Like, if I'm serving my
okay.
children, my husband or my in-laws, anybody sick in the family, I'm not doing it, that, oh, I'll be praised or I like doing it. That's why I'm doing it. I will not do it because I don't like doing it. So that thought should not be there, that I have to do it for myself, my sense gratification. I am attached to doing this. That means I like doing this. I detached from doing this because I don't like doing this. That thought should not be there. I have to do it because this is my duty. And I have to do it for Krishna's satisfaction. These are all Krishna's children. And he has given them in my life. And I have to satisfy him by doing my best for them. And the best we can do for all the souls who are connected to us now in this life is to connect them to Krishna. We give them Krishna prasadam, we make them chant, or we make them hear chanting, but of course we don't have to force them. So if my in-laws are sick, taking care of them, and I'm not able to do my aarti today evening, if I have to take care of them, doesn't mean that I didn't do devotional service. If my consciousness is proper, that I am taking care of them because this will make Krishna happy. They are Krishna's children, and this is my duty to serve them. Then that will also become a devotional service. Okay, so any activity, it can be performed on material platform or spiritual platform, depending upon our consciousness. If we do it for ourselves, then it is mental platform. Then we are bound in the reactions. good or bad, we will get the reaction. But if we do it proper understanding, proper consciousness that we are doing it for Krishna, then we are free from the reaction. Krishna will take care of everything. I did what maybe, I couldn't do my best, or I could not satisfy the person whom I was serving, but I did it for Krishna. And if Krishna is satisfied, it's good. Okay, Mataji, does that make sense? Do you understand?
Thank you so much, Mataji.
Yeah, Mataji. So we don't have to change anything, That's why Prabhupada has given us such a beautiful system. We don't have to give up anything, but we have to only add Krishna to whatever we are doing. That makes the whole game change. It just turns around, everything. So it's a game of consciousness. That's why it's Krishna consciousness, Society for Krishna Consciousness. Okay, so far we did two aspects, restraining the senses from sense objects, and then in verse number 59, Krishna told about how we have to engage them in something higher. We have to give them a higher taste than because the forceful restriction can't go on for too long. Now in verse number 60, Krishna is telling that it's not easy. Doing this, it's not easy. So Krishna himself is telling us. So let's see what he says. Verse number 60. यततो हि अपि कौन्तेय पुरुषस्य विपश्चितः इन्द्रियाणि प्रमाथीनि हरन्ति प्रसभं मनः. Who will read? Sarojini Mataji, you want to read?
Yes, Mataji, of course. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. Translation: the senses are so strong and impetuous, O Arjuna, that they forcibly carry away the mind even of a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them. Purport: there are many learned sages, philosophers, and transcendentalists who try to conquer the senses, but in spite of their endeavors, even the greatest of them sometimes fall victim to material sense enjoyment due to the agitated mind. Even Vishwamitra, a great sage and perfect yogi, was misled by Menaka into sex enjoyment. Although the yogi was endeavoring for sense control with severe types of penances and yoga practice. And of course, there are so many similar instances in the history of the world. Therefore, it is very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna consciousness. Without engaging the mind in Krishna, one cannot chase such material engagements. A practical example is given by Sri Yamunacharya, a great saint and devotee, who says, Yada avadi mama cheta Krishna padarvinde navanava rasa dhyamana yadutam rantumam ashit tad avadi bat nari sangame स्मरण्यामाने भवति मुख विग्रह सुतुः निस्तिवानं च. Since my mind has been engaged in the service of the lotus feet of the Lord Krishna, and I have been enjoying an ever new transcendental humor, whenever I think of sex life with a woman, my face at once turns from it, and I spit at the thought. Krishna consciousness is such a transcendentally nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It is as if a hungry man had satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious eatable. Maharaj Ambrish also conquered a great yogi, Durvasa Muni, simply because his mind was engaged in Krishna consciousness. Sa vai mana Krishna pada aravindo vachasmi vaikuntha gunani bannane. Hare Krishna Mataji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you, Mataji.
Is telling that it's not so easy. Vipaschita, even one who can discriminate, a man of discrimination who is endeavoring to control them, it's not easy. Paramathini, these senses are They are very, very powerful. They are very strong. And Prabhupada, he gives examples of Vishwamitra and Menka, which we already discussed. And yeah, there are other examples also in this regard. Yayati, Maharaj Yayati, etc. in Srimad Bhagavatam. So how they could control their senses was not easy. So therefore, it's very difficult to control the mind and senses without being fully Krishna conscious. Example of Yamunacharya also Prabhupada is giving here. That how Yamunacharya was a family man. He was a great emperor. But when he engaged himself in the service of the lotus feet of Supreme Lord Krishna, and he tasted the higher, he got the higher taste, he realized that what he was engaged in, that was just nothing. He felt like, spitting at it. Even at the thought of having intimacy with the woman, he couldn't bear the thought of that. I spit at that thought, he said. So that's Yamunacharya. He gives us that practical example. And the last paragraph again, Prabhupada is telling nicely that Krishna consciousness is such a transcendently nice thing that automatically material enjoyment becomes distasteful. It's as if a hungry man had satisfied his hunger by a sufficient quantity of nutritious eatables. So our senses are hungry. They need ahar, food. But we have to give them what food, that we have to decide. So if we give them Krishna conscious activities, we engage them in that, then they can be satisfied. That hunger can be satisfied. Example is of again Maharaj Ambrish. So he was such a great devotee engaged in Krishna consciousness, he could conquer the great yogi Durvasha Muni also. Because Ambrish Maharaj was engaged in Krishna consciousness, whereas Durvasha Muni was just a mystic yogi. He was not a devotee. He was not engaged in devotional service. Now, in verse number 61, Krishna is telling two things. So, yeah, that aspect is still going on, the third part. So, Krishna is now here telling two things, that is restraining the senses and then engaging them in Krishna's service, which our Prabhupada is already explaining in the purport in the earlier verses also. So, we restrain them, we give them the higher taste. And what is that higher taste? Engaging them in Krishna's service. So, that is the third aspect. Verse number 61. Tani sarvani samyamya yukta asita matparah vashe hi yasya indriyani tasya pragna pratishtita. Who would want to read? Vijay Lakshmi Mataji, Shobha Mataji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, I will read.
Yes.
Translation. One who restrains his senses, keeping them under full control and fixes his consciousness upon me is known as a man of steady intelligence. Purport. That the highest conception of yoga perfection in Krishna is Krishna consciousness is clearly explained in this verse. And unless one is Krishna conscious, it is not at all possible to control the senses. As cited above, the great sage Durvasa Muni picked a quarrel with Maharaja Amrishi, and Durvasa Muni unnecessarily became angry out of pride and therefore could not check his senses. On the other hand, the king, although not as powerful a yogi as the sage, but a devotee of the Lord, silently tolerated all the sage's injustices and thereby emerged victorious. The king was able to control his senses because of the following qualifications as mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4, 18 to 20. Savai Manaha Krishna Pada Ravindayor Vachamsi Vaikunta Gunanu Varnane Karau Harer Mandira Marjanadisu Shrutim Chakarachyuta Sat Katodaye Mukunda Lingalaya Darshane Drisau Tat Brithya Gatre Sparshanga Sangamam Grinam Chatat Pada Saroja Saurabhi Srimat Tulasya Rasanam Tad Arpite Padau Hareha Kshetra Padanusarpane Shiro Rishikesha Pada Bhivandane Kamam Cha Dase Dasye Natu Kama Kamyaya Yatotama Sloka Janashaya Ratihi. King Ambrisha fixed his mind on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, engaged words in describing the abode of the Lord, his hands in cleaning the temple of the Lord, his ears in hearing the pastimes of the Lord, his eyes in seeing the form of the Lord, his body in touching the body of the devotee, his nostrils in smelling the flavor of the flowers offered to the lotus feet of the Lord, his tongue in tasting the tulsi leaves offered to him, his legs in traveling to the holy place where his temple is situated, his head in offering obeisances unto the Lord, and his desires in fulfilling the desires of the Lord, and all these qualifications made him fit to become a Matpara devotee of the Lord. The word Matpara is most significant in this connection. How one can become Matpara is described in the life of Maharaja Amrisha. Srila Baladeva Vidyabhusha, a great scholar and acharya in the line of the Matpara, remarks, Mad Bhakti Prabhavena Sarvendriya Vijaya Purvika Swatma Drishtiha Su Labheti Bhavaha. The senses can be completely controlled only by the strength of the devotional service to Krishna. Also, the example of fire is sometimes given. As a blazing fire burns everything within a room, Lord Vishnu, situated in the heart of the yogi, burns up all kinds of impurities. The Yoga Sutra also prescribes meditation on Vishnu and not meditation on the void. The so-called yogis who meditate on something other than the Vishnu form simply waste their time in a vain search after some uh, phantasmagoria. We have to be Krishna conscious, devoted to the personality of Godhead. This is the aim of the real yoga. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. And you are so good at reading Sanskrit. You read so many verses so beautifully. Thank you, Mataji.
Thank you,
Okay.
Mataji.
Again, as I said, Krishna is telling here first thing about restraining the senses to keep them under control. And then he is telling, fix your consciousness upon me. So Krishna, first time he has talked about himself. So far, he had been telling that offer the result, be detached from the result, but to whom to offer to the result to, he had never mentioned. So now here he has said that you have to do it for me, fix your consciousness upon me. So our acharyas, they say that this is the first drop of bhakti in Bhagavad Gita. So when Krishna comes in the picture, then the bhakti starts. So that's why I was telling Nishkam Karma Yoga for the previous verses. Here Krishna is talking about himself. So this is the first drop of bhakti in Bhagavad Gita. So he's telling that you have to engage your senses, you have to restrain them and engage them in Krishna's services, my services, this thing. So this is a direct instruction to Arjuna to serve Krishna, by Krishna. Okay, and Srila Prabhupada, he has given example of Ambrish Maharaj, how he was engaged in serving the Supreme Lord by all his senses. We already discussed a little bit about it. And then the word Matpara, that also Prabhupada has explained in the second, that's the last paragraph of the purport. So this Matpara is most significant in this connection. So what is Matpara? If you see word to word meaning, Matpara means in relationship with me. Krishna is telling that Yukta Asit Matpara. So in relationship with me, you have to do everything. So that is very significant. How one can become Matpara, that is described in the life of Maharaj Ambrish. How we can do everything in connection, in relationship with the Supreme Lord. So Ambrish Maharaj is an example for that. And then as we move down in the last paragraph of the purport, example of fire is given. So, when the senses are fully engaged in Lord's service, then they are like, blazing fire. That is bhakti, right? Engaging all the senses in Lord's service is the bhakti. And that bhakti is like a blazing fire. It can burn all the impurities in our heart. Just how a fire can burn everything within a room, the bhakti can burn all the impurities in our heart. All the sense gratification propensities, not just the whatever activity we are doing that time, but the propensity to enjoy, that also is burnt. That can be burnt away by the dint of bhakti. So this is a verse of Bhakti Yoga here. Okay, so these are the three aspects Krishna has told here, how to control our senses and mind. We have to restrain them, like a tortoise, then we have to give them a higher taste. And now he told what is that higher taste? We have to engage them in Krishna consciousness for serving the Lord. He himself has told Matpara, in relationship with me. Now verse number 62 and 63, Krishna is telling, what if one doesn't do this? What if one allows his mind to be attracted to the sense objects? Then what happens? So he's in the two verses 62, 63, Krishna is telling about 8 systematic steps of fall down, how a person will then fall down. Verse number 62. ध्यायतो विश्यान् पुंसा संगस्तेषुपजायते संगात् संजायते कामा कामात् क्रोधाभिजायते.
Hare Krishna, can I read, Mataji?
Yes, Mataji, please go ahead.
Translation. While contemplating the objects of the senses, a person develops attachment for them, and from such attachment, lust develops, and from lust, anger arises. Purport. One who is not in Krishna conscious is subjected to material desires while contemplating the objects of the senses. The senses require real engagements, and if they are not engaged in transcendental loving service of God, they will certainly seek engagement in the service of materialism. In the material world, everyone, including Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma, to say nothing of other demigods in the heavenly planets, is subjected to the influence of sense objects. And the only method to get out of this puzzle of material existence is to become Krishna conscious. Lord Shiva was deep in meditation. But when Parvati agitated him for sense pleasure, he agreed to the proposal, and as a result, Kartikeya was born. When Haridasa Thakur was a young devotee of the Lord, he similarly allured by the incarnation of Maya Devi, but Haridasa easily passed the test because of his unalloyed devotion to Lord Krishna. As illustrated in our mentioned verse of Sri Yamunacharya, a sincere devotee of Lord shuns all material sense enjoyment due to his higher taste for spiritual enjoyment in the association of the Lord. This is the secret of success. One who is not therefore in Krishna consciousness, however powerful he may be in controlling the senses by artificial repression, is sure ultimately to fail. For the slightest thought of sense pleasure will agitate him to gratify his desires. Thank you, Mata.
Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna. I think we can read the next verse also because both of them go together and then we will talk about it. Verse number 63. Krodhat bhavati sammoha sammohat smriti vibhrama smriti bhramashad buddhi nasho buddhi nashat pranashati. Someone please read. Pratibha.
It is not on the screen.
Verse number 63, Prabhuji, can you please, scroll down. Verse number 63 also we can read and then we will discuss both them together. Yeah, someone please read it quickly. Yeah.
Mata, should I continue or?
Yes, Mataji, you can, please.
Okay. Translation. From anger, complete delusion arises, and from delusion, bewilderment of memory. When memory is bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost, one falls down again into the material pool. Purport. Sri Rupa Goswami has given us this direction. Prapanchi Katyaya Buddhaya Hari Sambandhi Vastunaha Mumuksubi Parityago Vairagyam Halagu Kathayati. Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu 1.2.258. By development of Krishna consciousness, one can know that everything has its use in the service of the Lord. Those who are without knowledge of Krishna consciousness artificially try to avoid material objects, and as a result, although they desire liberation from material bondage, they do not attain to the perfect state of renunciation. Their so-called renunciation is called phalagu, or less important. On the other hand, a person in Krishna consciousness knows how to use everything in the service of the Lord. Therefore, he does not become a victim of material consciousness. For example, for an impersonalist, the Lord or the absolute being impersonal cannot eat. Whereas an impersonalist try to avoid good eatables, a devotee knows that Krishna is the supreme enjoyer and that he eats all that is offered to him in devotion. So after offering good eatables to the Lord, the devotee takes the remnants called prasadam. Thus everything becomes spiritualized and there is no danger of a downfall. The devotee takes prasadam in Krishna consciousness, whereas the non-devotee rejects it as material. The impersonalist therefore cannot enjoy life due to his artificial renunciation, and for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls him down again into the pool of material existence. It is said that such a soul, even though rising up to the point of liberation, falls down again due to his not having support in devotional service. Thank you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. So everyone just be attentive. We already now time is over, but we start also a little late. And these are important verses. So just be attentive. The 8 steps of fall down when we don't, control our mind and senses to come in contact with sense objects. So verse number 62. The first part of the purport, there are only 2 choices Krishna has given, that engage the senses in Krishna's service or materialism. These are the 2 choices Krishna is giving, because senses need engagement. And to the degree we engage our senses in Krishna's service, to that degree we will not be attracted by sense objects. So what happens if we allow our senses to come in contact with the sense objects while contemplating on the objects of the senses? Dhyayate. When we start putting our dhyan on that, contemplating on the sense objects, then what happens? Person develops attachment for them. Sangas te shupajayate. Sangas is attachment. So the more we think about some sense object, we engage our sense in that thing, then we will develop attachment for that. So now, the latest thing what goes in the malls, they try to engage our multiple senses in their products. First of all, they display it in their glass things outside, so that our eyes, they just see that and they come in contact with that sense object, and we develop a desire to, we become attached to that. And then they also make us touch that thing. We can pick up things, we can smell things. So many senses are engaged, we can try that on. So if we, bring the sense object and senses in touch, we start developing the contemplation on that sort of, then attachment develops. And from such attachment, then what will develop? Lust develops. We want it. We want to attain that. And if that desire to attain that thing, to achieve that thing, that is not fulfilled, then what will happen? Anger will arise. From the lust, anger arises. And in the next verse, krodad bhavati samoha. So now after krodha, when we are angry, samoha, perfect illusion. Even if we have read the scriptures, even if we know what is right and wrong, we will just totally be illusioned. We will not consider all that. I want it, that's it. And angry, of course, we know in anger we just forget about all rights and wrongs, so we are totally illusioned. And from samohat, smriti vibramaha. Smriti, memory goes, what Krishna had told and what was written, all that memory will be gone. And smriti bhramshat buddhi nashat, loss of intelligence, no intelligence can be used in that situation. And buddhi nashat pranshati, and one falls down. So these are the 8 steps if we don't control our senses in the beginning itself. So what is the intelligent thing to do? We have to restrain our senses. We have to control our mind and senses from coming in contact with the sense objects. Once they come in contact, we start thinking about that, contemplating about that. Attachment will develop and lust will develop to achieve that thing. And from lust, anger, and from anger, samoha, that is illusion, and then memory, bewilderment, intelligence lost, and fall down. So these are the 8 things. It's like a snowball, if you have seen a mountain where snow falls down. So as it goes down, it just picks up more and more speed. And it is just next to impossible to stop that snowball then from moving. We can't stop it. It just picks up so much speed, it just roll down very fast. It's only possible to stop it right at the top, at the beginning. If we can put some effort, we can stop it. Otherwise, it will just pick up so much momentum, it will just go down. So that is the case with our senses also. Okay, and to the degree we engage our senses in Krishna's service, to that degree we will not be attracted by sense objects only. So this is the key point, how we can restrain it at the first point only. And Prabhupada has given the example of Lord Shiva and Haridas Thakur. So how Lord Shiva, he got distracted because it's not the comparison between the personalities. Of course, Lord Shiva is the topmost Vaishnava. Prabhupada is just trying to explain us about the activity. So Haridas Thakur was engaged in the devotional service, chanting of the holy name. Therefore, he was not attracted by Maya Devi. So artificial repression, that doesn't help us. So what we have to do, we have to engage it in Krishna's service. Okay. So yeah, in the verse number 63 also, Prabhupada telling the impersonalists therefore cannot enjoy life due to artificial renunciation. And for this reason, a slight agitation of the mind pulls them down again into the pool of material existence. So artificially we can't, oh, I will give up eating this thing, I will not do this. No, Prabhupada is telling we can eat everything. We have to just offer it to the Lord first, and then we honor the prasada. We can take the remnants because it's spiritualized. Then there is no danger of fall down. Just restricting our tongue from not eating this, not eating that, then there is a risk of falling down. Okay. So again, another example is of Ajamil also from Bhagavatam. So how he saw the Shudra and the Shudrani in an embracing position, and he continued. It's not that he just saw them and he fell down. What was the reason for his fall down? Because he contemplated, he continued thinking about that. Dhyan, अपना ध्यान उधर लगा के रखा हुआ था पूरा. He was continuously thinking about them, contemplating upon that scene. And then everything began. Attachment for that Shudrani began, and he gave up everything for her, and the fall down happened. Okay. So we have to stop it at the dhyan level itself. No contemplation, even if attracted by something, we have to just think about Krishna. If that thing can be used in his service, good for me. Otherwise, that's it. The end over there only. Then only the cycle can be stopped. Okay, so we will stop here for today. Anybody, any questions, any reflections? Just 2 minutes, we can talk about that. I was mistaken that we have 2 classes, how earlier we used to have Monday, Tuesday. So I thought we'll be able to complete this chapter this week. But yeah, no, we can't do it. We'll continue next week. Anybody, any questions, anything? Or we can take it up next week also, if it is too late for you.
Yes, Mataji, can you please once again repeat that to the degree we are engaged in Krishna's service, to that degree we will not be able
We will not be attracted by sense objects.
Okay.
Sense
Yes.
gratification, yeah, that thought will not come. I want to,
Yes.
yeah.
Thank
To
you,
that degree,
Mataji.
we will not be attracted by sense objects. Okay, thank you
Thank you.
everybody for joining and for your attentive hearing. May Srila Prabhupada be